All right, we are live. So, welcome back to the stream. And just to get things going, need to do a little bit of recap. So, seems like there's a bit of a lag here. Not seeing my display where it needs to be. That's interesting. All right, there we go. So, this thing is up and running now. All right, so time to dig back into where we were yesterday. So just give me a second to open that Visual Studio Code. That's the share button I was looking for. So I'm just dropping out to show where I'm staring from. Alright, so I can close that. I didn't even open VS Code yet. VS Code. Actually, let me move this over here. Alright, so here we go. So I don't know why by default it keeps opening up this other project. So let me just change this location back, and then we can go ahead and get started. Alright, so when we left off yesterday, we had only got to creating our post. We can now go ahead and pick it up and get it out of our database and send it back to ourselves. And now we want to be able to, and we were updating it, and now we want to be able to say, all right, we want to update, we want to delete it now. So now we want to be able to actually say, we want to go into our router and be able to delete something. So now, I believe it's, yeah, so we go router.delete, and this is what we're using to delete a route. And all we have to do is do the same thing that we did before with patch and get. And now we're going to say we're going to pass in an ID, and we're going to be able to access the post that we want to delete. And then we're going to say, we're going to get that ID again. So we're going to, here we go again. So my camera's going to be pretty glitchy. So my apologies in advance. And actually, seems like I'm having some issues here. I'm not picking up my audio. So, welcome back to the, actually, let me move this over here. Seems like we're still working. We're good. We're good. So, alright. My apologies in advance. And actually, so I'm sorry. I was looking at the terminal. I'm looking at my stream, and it seemed like everything got shut down. So I'm actually going to do, I'm going to stop the stream, and then I'm going to restart it. Alright, so now I've got a fresh stream going. So sorry about that, guys. I had to stop my stream and restart it because I thought I was having a technical issue with my audio, but it seems like the audio is coming in good. So I'm actually going to do, I'm going to stop the stream, and then I'm going to restart. So everything still seems to be going well, so I'm just going to keep it going. And hopefully I didn't lose anybody in the process. So now I'm going to go back and I'm going to do try to get the post out of the database, because right now we're working with our router and we're deleting entries from our database. So just in case that got removed from the previous setup. So here we go. So now we're going to do post, and we're going to find by ID, and we're going to update. Oh, sorry. We're going to find by ID and delete. Issue a Mongo find by one and delete command by documents is equivalent to find by ID and delete. Wait, where's? Oh, I see. Find by ID and delete is equivalent to find by ID and delete. Finds a match and removes it passing the found document. So I guess this remove command, this one seems like it does the same exact thing. So let me look into the Mongoose docs and see what the difference is between those, because you would think they would be the same thing. So if I'm in here and I'm going to query, and now, well, actually I want to go to queries, find by ID and delete, and I want to compare that to find by ID and remove. So now let's jump in here. So yeah, it looks up and then it deletes it. So I think maybe the variation is just in the options. So this one is like, it seems like a modification. Whereas the query, if the callback is passed. So I think it's some kind of sorting here. Such the document fields to return. Okay, I don't get it, so I'm just gonna use find by ID and delete just because that's I want to delete. So find by ID and delete, and we're gonna get that ID from the request.params.id. So that ID is gonna be on that body there, and then it seems like there's a callback function that goes with that. So I would assume that's probably the biggest difference between the two, because when I look down here at the options, it seems like the options don't change much, but when I go over here and I look up, never mind. So I believe this is just the callback, and just like how we did before, we're not deleting just a field off of this thing. We want to delete the whole thing. So if I'm not mistaken, I believe that's how it works, but I'm going to compare it to my older code, and then I'll work through and clear up any discrepancies between the two. So now we've got this older one. I'm going to go use post, and then I want to look at the delete. So in that delete, we didn't add any parameters to that. So okay, I'm doing pretty good. So what I want to do now is I want to go ahead and try and look for something and delete it. And what it returns, as it says in the documentation, is that if it finds which one is it? Find one and delete. Where's find by ID and delete? Feels like I clicked on the same link. Alright, let's just go back to the docs. And find by ID and delete. Alright, so this one here, yeah, it returns the query. So, and then it just does what we think. And then what it does is it actually triggers another command to actually look for this specific I guess object, right, or whatever you use for your model, and it'll delete that one. So when we go here to model find by one and delete, it's going to return our query, which should be the actual post that we're trying to delete. And then if I look here, we're in our old code, we're looking and we say, okay, If there's not a post, then we need to throw an error. Otherwise, you're going to get back the exact post that you deleted. So you'll know and you can verify, hey, this is the post you're going to delete. Are you sure? Kind of thing. So when I go back to wait, where is it? Okay, so that's the new one. This one. So now we're going to say, okay, if there isn't a post, we need to say that we need to return that error. So we need to return, and this return isn't to say that you're necessarily like returning something in the form of like, oh, I did some action, I want to store a variable, or I want to complete everything. You're just saying, hey, here I want to stop you from going to the next line in this little block here, and you want to jump down into the next block. So that's what this does. So response dot status, and we're gonna say 404 not found, I believe is what it is. 404. Yep, 404 means it's not found, and then we're gonna send that. And I don't believe anything goes with that when you send it. Yep, because it doesn't exist. So then otherwise, we're gonna send you back that information. And I think by default the status is 200, so I don't think you have to give a 200 status in when you're doing these kinds of things, except for when you're creating. So the 200 I think is default. So even here I don't think I need it in that patch, so I can go ahead and take that out. So then what we'll just do is we're just going to send this post back to the user just so that they know which post that they deleted. And then if there's any other kind of issue, there's some kind of error, then we know that there's something going on with the database. So that's out of the user's hand. They'll just have to try to do it again or something. So you'll just do response dot status, and it's going to be a 500. And then we're going to do send any error codes or error message that comes with that. So maybe and even in bigger terms, it might say, hey, you don't even have authorization to do this kind of stuff, so you shouldn't even be trying to access this thing. So that's what this is. So now we have our delete option. And as you see, it's not really a lot of code here to interact with the database because it's been set up for us here. And it's really convenient for us because now when we're doing stuff with our database, we can just at this point it would be a matter of entering the data and clicking a button, and all this stuff is going to happen for us. So we've got it. So in order to do all of this stuff, we created our schema, and from there we just throw in what everything's supposed to look like, and then over in here we actually create the database. So every time we have something with Mongoose, it knows now that when anything we say with Mongoose, so for instance in post, if we go down into models, and when you create this post, you're doing mongoose.model. So now it's injecting that into the database to for validation, all that kind of stuff. And then in our router, we go a lot deeper, and now we're saying we have a new post, and now we're telling it to save it to the database. So this is really, really powerful stuff, and it doesn't really take a lot of code. Altogether, this is maybe probably 200 lines or less, and that's including this our home, or our starting point, which nests everything together. So we've got a lot done here in just a few lines of code. So now we're going to go ahead and test this out. And as always, to test out this stuff, best way to do it is using Postman. Shout out to Vegeta in the background. And yeah, my camera is going crazy. I have no idea why. I don't know if maybe it's jumping in and out between the Wi-Fi or what. So I do apologize for that. So I'm just letting Postman load up, and now that we have Postman up, we can go ahead and move on and create our next. request. So we're going to make another request, and this request is going to be delete post. And we're going to add this into the William Ennals collection. We're going to save it there. And then by default, it always goes to get, so we just have to change it there. So now we're going to change this, and we're going to do the request. So we're going to do localhost 3000, and then we're going to say slash, and now we're going to do posts. And then this is where we put in our ID. And since we don't know right off the bat what our ID is, we have to go in here and open up Robo3T. And this is how we'll get our ID and send that to the database to check to see if it exists. So now we're connected to the database, and it'll be in whatever state we left it in our last session. So we open this thing up, make it a little bigger, and we go down, we go to collections, we go to posts, and we say, hey, what's in here? And we have this thing here. So now we want to get this ID here. So what I can do is I can actually click this copy value and minimize that. And then when I go to this, I can just control V that. And now I have the value. So now I have the ID. So now when I go to delete this thing, I should just be able to send it. Actually, yeah, I should just be able to send this. Oh, I know what I did wrong. I never started the server, 1. And 2, I'm grabbing this ID. Oh yeah, it's in params because it's not in the body. We're not sending anybody. So never mind that. I just never started the server. So let's see. Actually, there's another thing too. In package.json, right? So I should be able to do NodeRunDev. Could be wrong. NodeDev, is it? I forget how you do this thing. Let me Google that really quick, because there's another command for, you see here where it's like dev. I wanted to see how you run that. So NodeRunDev script. Is it npm run dev? Oh, okay. Yeah, that's it. So npm run dev. I know it's close. Yep, there it is. So now that's another way of doing it. Instead of saying NodeIndex.js, I can just say npm run dev. And this is what will happen in a development environment. So if anybody pulls your code down, they have this script, so that way they can get into your development environment and have all that stuff there. Now, when you're doing production code, you might change it to be start. And instead of it being NodeMon, where you're not making any changes in your production code, it just needs to run, and that's it. So you'll just be NodeIndex.js, and that'll be about it. So let me put a comma here, and then there it is. So now that I have the server running, it should be connected now. So when I go into here, we can actually send the request. Server couldn't send requests. So let me try it one more time now that everything is hooked up. Sometimes it could take a second. Alright, so, oh, I know. It's a typo. So watch out for typos. They cause errors too. And there we go. We get our OK message, which says, hey, your post was deleted. But I want to look into see if there's another error code. I'm a pretty weird guy. I like to be very specific. But I guess in this case, that is as consistent as we're gonna get. So I guess there can be like a found maybe, but I don't think that applies to this. And you're definitely, so 200 are success messages, and 300 is redirection. 400 gives you your client error, where maybe somebody did something wrong, maybe the data was entered incorrectly, things like that. And the 500 is like your server error, meaning maybe something broke on the server side and you want to help kind of give your user some kind of feedback on what went wrong. So I'll stick with the 200 message because it just says, hey, your message, your post was deleted successfully. So now, and you'll notice if we go back into the database, if we minimize this and we refresh this collection, actually let me minimize and see what happens. For some reason I have to delete this. I think there's another way to do it, I just don't know how. But you see what happens when we open it up, there's nothing in here now. So it's gone, it's empty. So that was successful. And now what we can do is we can play around with this. So you can work through each section. So we can say, hey, we already created a post here in the body. So now we can go ahead and create that again. Boom, we created it. Now we can go in our database and see if this thing was actually created. Let me see. Okay, there we go. You can just refresh it there by re-executing the query. Boom, we get that. So it's there now. Let's see. And you see the content is 1, 2, 3. So now let's go in and say we want to get this. Let's see. We want to get the post by this ID. So let me go ahead and look this thing up. Oh, right now it doesn't exist because it has a new unique ID. So now I need to copy this ID and I need to put it in place here. Slash there. So now we can get it back, and there we go. We have 200 message. So now we know our query was successful. We have our data here. So now when we go over and look at patch, we have to do the same thing that we just did in the previous one, where we have to change the ID to match the new ID for the post that we just created, and then we're going to do the same thing. In this case, let's change the content. And then say, woo! That's it. Let's just do a woo moment. Woo! And look at that. Content is woo! So when you go back here, let's refresh. And boom, look at that. Whoa, I think it's more like whoa, not woo. All right, so got that. And now we're gonna go over here, and now we're gonna delete it. So now we're gonna say change this ID, put that up in there, and then we're gonna send that off, and boom, we deleted it. So now when we go back and we re-execute this query, it is deleted. So now we just went through the process of creating, getting, fetching, whatever you want to call it, updating a post, and deleting it. And in this update, we can actually change so much more. We can change anything about it. We can change the title. We can change the we can change the image. We can change anything here. So you know, I just kind of kept it simple here with just changing content, so it's just easier to pick up. But we can change so much more in this, and you do the same way in any other JSON. You go in, you'd add, let's say we want to change the title, right? You say, this is the new title for our post. And so now you update two things. And I'm not going to fire that off just because I think it'll be a little redundant, but just to show that you can do that. So that actually wraps up what we want to do for our post, at least as of right now. So then now that we have that, we have our post, we have our get, we have our patch, and we have our delete. So that's all of the CRUD methods that we need to do. But here's the thing. What if once you have your post or your blog go live, you don't want anybody being able to tap into your database and manipulate it, right? You don't want just anybody going in there. You only want certain people to have that authority. So what you have to do is you have to create authorization or authentic. Well, I get these two a little mixed up, but you have authentication is more like identifying people that come to your site, and then you have authorization to give rights to perform specific actions. Um, oh, actually, I'm seeing something here. So, thing I like about this is that I just found out that I'm using some depreciated stuff. So let's look into that. So it seems like the find by one and delete is depreciated, so meaning it's not going to be supported moving forward. So what I have to do is find one and update and find one and delete. So let's see, find one without the use, find, and modify option set. So I have to add this option on there, otherwise I'm going to have some issues. So so this is telling me to I guess I can use find and modify. So let me find that. So I can use find and make mongoose. Note that this option is true. By default, you need to set it to false. So I need to add this option on there. So in order to do that, I just go in and add that. So I'll show you what I mean. Let's close that. So where we had our patch, we had run validators, and then another thing I need to do is go in here and add this here and say false. And then I need to do the same thing down in here. And the options are object because there's more than one property that you can change at one time. So that's why you have options. And then it knows it's an option because of the object notation that I used. So and let's go back to the documentation to verify. So you have find and modify. That's not what I want. Find. Where is it? Find by one and delete. Find by one and delete. And let's go to queries. Find by ID and delete. And then it tells us. It doesn't tell us here. But let's see if that solves our problem. And as you saw before in the terminal, it'll let us know. So let's go ahead, and I guess you guys will see how this stuff works. And we can also test another thing. We can hit create post, so we know a post doesn't exist before because we try it again. Hey, you get that message, this post already exists. Boom. So we get that error message, and it's so much more clear, right? And then over here, let's go ahead and get this new post. Where's this ID? Oh yeah, I forgot. Let's go into the database and get the ID. And actually, let me change the way this thing looks. I like this way so much better. Copy value. Boom. And then now we're gonna say over here, we're gonna get it. So now that we're going ahead to pick this thing up, got it, and send. Boom. So we've got that now, and then we need to go over here, and now when we do our patch, let's see if it hits that. We get that message again about the depreciation. So when I go ahead and send that, we get a 200 status, meaning we're good. And then let me go and check the terminal. Seems like we're good to go. So you see before we had a depreciation warning. We had to add this option on there. So now when we go, and we already changed it, so we're good there. And another thing, you see the titles changed too now. So that's kind of 2 for 1. And here we have our our delete, and when we go to delete it, should be the same thing. Shouldn't have any problems here. And I guess I was smart. I would have copied it one after I already took all that stuff off. And we get another 200 message, and when we look out in the terminal, we don't see any depreciation notices. So now we're good to go. So we have all of this stuff hooked up, and now we want to start doing some authentication. And for some reason I forgot to plug my computer up, so I'm going to take a brief break to go ahead and set that up. And I don't have a pause screen. Alright, time to set this bad boy up. Jeez, can't find the hole. Phrasing. All right, now gotten that taken care of. Let's go ahead and dive back into this. So, as I was saying, that there's gonna come a time where, well, not gonna be a time, but we're gonna have to. Okay, girlfriend made it home, and let's go over. I'm gonna take this over here because I think I have some authorization added in here. Maybe not. Yeah, I don't think I made it that far. All right, so now we're in some new ground, and the reason why I'm kind of just jumping over. Actually, I'll go ahead and do the project stuff first before we dive into the rest of what we were doing, just because this is easier to kind of just keep going with the momentum we already have before we start introducing a new concept. So we're pulling Mongoose, and then we also have to pull in our project. This is our project database. So, and then we're going to require the this is in this different folder. So // models / project, and that's how we get that project. And then I'm not going to tie that into the express router just yet, because I want to show you guys what'll happen when you don't set that up. So I'm not going to do that. And next we have, actually I'm sorry, give me 1 second. I'm getting some communications here. So you can't really see what I'm typing, but you'll see in a second what's going on. Let's see what else. Express.js, MongoDB. I'm actually just making a tweet on Twitter to promote this website. So I'm gonna promote this stream. So sue me. But, and then software dev. So yeah, got that out the way, and now back to this. So when I do this next week, I'm gonna be planning to be a lot more streamlined in terms of my my process. But right now I'm little, not little, but I'm pretty kind of just winging this as I go. Something new for me. So that's pretty much what it is. Just kind of learning as I go, both with the code and with the whole concept of streaming, and trying to stay on a schedule with it. So then we're gonna get this. Actually, router is we need to get Express. Yeah, I see what I did. So I don't need Express. Is what I need. Not Mongoose. So Express is just what redirects all our stuff. It's what directs all our stuff. And then so router is gonna equal the Express dot router, and then now we can just jump right into it. So we're gonna say router dot post, and then we're gonna jump in. We're gonna say slash project, or should it be slash projects? It would be project because we're gonna be creating one. And then we're gonna do a sync, and then we're gonna request, and then we're gonna do response. And then we're gonna go here, and we're gonna drop in, and now we're ready to get started. So now, just as before, we have to create our new we have to create our new project object. So I'm just gonna say project equals new project, and then and then we're gonna define that with the request body, just as we did in the previous router. So get that post from request.body, and then we want to do the same thing, right? If a project already exists, I don't want to go ahead and do that again. So what I'm gonna do is I want to sort it by something that's gonna be a little bit more unique. So even with my post, I guess I could have been a little bit more specific too, with it saying, okay, if it has the same category and it has the same, I'm sorry, I'm kind of jumping around here. Where's project? So if it has the same title and it has the same, where are we? So if it has the same, there we go. So if it has the same name and it has the same, there isn't anything else to kind of sort it by. Oh, if it has this, excuse me, if it has the same name and the same type, then I probably want to say, hey, this thing already exists. So that's what we're going to do here. So we're going to say if, actually, how did I do it in the last one? Title. That's what we did there. So I can do the same thing over here. Pull this out and just remove this. I feel like just kind of creating a constant and only using it once is a little weird to me. It's kind of like if you don't need to use it multiple times, you can kind of just throw it in right there. But if I did need to refer to it more than once, then I'd say, okay, let me not, be repetitive, and then I'll create a variable and store it in there. I just think it makes more sense that way as opposed to just having variables just for the sake of having variables for stuff. Let's see. Oh yeah, back to here. So now we're gonna say if I need to create the existing project, don't I? Yep. So I'm doing a few things here. I'm gonna say try, because now we need to say we need to see if the project exists, right? And we don't know if the project exists until we look it up. And the reason why I put in the try block is because if anything goes wrong in there, we can automatically just direct it somewhere else, as opposed to doing it outside of this try block, and then it'll jump, and then the code jumping into the try block and then going further. So this is just a way to kind of capture code, related code within its own separate place, so that way when anything goes wrong, it's all chained together. So here we go. We're gonna say const existing project, or honestly, it might be like the better word might be say pre-existing or duplicate, something like that. Technically, the first one would be the duplicate, but we can say just to be consistent, I'll just say existing project equals await, because now we're gonna look in here and we don't know how long it's gonna take. If you have like 10,000, projects, it can take a while. So we're gonna await project dot find. Oh, did I miss something here? So project. Oh, I know. In here, I never exported it. So I'm gonna do module dot exports equals project. So we're only, out of everything else in here, we have all these other schemas. We only want project because these two are just to help us set up our project. They're not their own schemas, so we don't need to export those as well. We just need one thing. And so we're gonna do await project, and then let me go ahead and save my changes thus far. Yeah, put that in there, save that, and then over here, what did I change in here? Oh yeah, so save that. And as you see, NodeMon does its thing. I can just save it and have my server boot back up, as opposed to having to constantly go down and manually do that. So that saves us a lot of time there. So now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to say a project dot find one, because at this point we don't know what we're looking for exactly. And the only thing we know is we're going to say request dot body dot, actually it's not the body, it's going to be in the params, I believe. What's that, params? Yep, params. So we're going to look at params dot, and in this case we want to see if it had, oh sorry, there's a dirt bike going by. Params, and we want to look at the name, and we want to look at, actually let me create an object. That's really what we want. Find one. So we want to make sure it has the same name and the same title. So in this case, we just pass this in because I think this comes out as an object. So you have some options here. It can be an, so object conditions, boom, we got that right. So I think I might be able to add more than one without doing this object thing. So let's see. Find one, yep, comma, and we do request dot params dot what did I say? Project, the type. And there we go. That's what we're looking for. We want to see matching type and matching name, because maybe there's a project of the same name, but it's a design. And then in this case, maybe I have a project of, so I have two projects, right? One is maybe a design for a company, and then I might actually do the code for the company. So those are two different things. So maybe I want to kind of post those a little differently. Who knows? So that kind of gives me that flexibility there. So yeah, that's that. And then so I can say if there's no existing project, that's when I want to go ahead and save. So that's what I want to say, post, actually no, if it exists, we're gonna jump out of this. If it exists, we're gonna return out of here, and we're gonna say response dot status, and we're gonna give that 409 message, and then we're going to say, and then we're going to send the message, a project with, let's just say this project already exists. Project already exists. Or you can say, in this case, a project with this name already exists, and we'll know that we just have to change the name, because even if the type is the same, so this will only show if it's the same name and type. So it doesn't really matter. So you won't have to change the type. You'll just know you have to change your name. So that's that. And then kind of a little bit more intuitively, we'll know too that, hey, if the name exists, then either the type is wrong or the name has to be changed. So and then if otherwise, we're going to send out that project. Actually, no, we're going to save that project. Nope. Response not save. Or is it request not save? Oh, no, I got it. It's project dot save. There we go. And that's how we save. And then we're going to catch any errors. So far we're looking at it and we say, okay, if something exists, there's a conflict, you're going to do 409. And then when you save it, cool, we get that. And then if anything else happens, that's when we're going to get some other kind of message. And pause right, let the dirt bikes go by. That's when we're going to just say, hey, we don't know what's going on, but we can't do it. So maybe there's something going on your end. So, and I think that's how I did in the first one as well. Yeah, I sent the 400. So it's just a bad request. Something funky is going on. Because at this point, when you're trying to save it, if it doesn't save, then maybe something's going on with the data. There should be no reason it just gets rejected from the database. I say there shouldn't be a reason, but maybe like your database could be full or something too. But that's a whole different discussion, and don't take my word for it. So we're going to do response dot status. We're going to say 400. Actually, I'm looking into these errors. So we got this stuff here. So there is one for insufficient storage, so you'll get that too. Server encountered an unexpected condition that prevented it from fulfilling the request. Cool. And then for the 400 bad request, there we go. Yeah, see? Yeah, if it can't create your post for some reason, it's assumed that something's going on on the person's side, because we have no idea. They're like, hey, I don't know what's going on, dude. You gotta figure that thing out. So now we have that, and that is our post. So we save it, not seeing any errors down here, and then we're going to go ahead and check it out. So I'm going to open up this project in a separate window just so I can see what's going on while I create the new project. So now we're going to go back into Postman, and now we're going to say a new post request, and then I think I can give it a name here. I'll do it later. So now we're going to go local host 3000 and go slash project, and now we want to go ahead and send that project out, and we're going to use raw, we're going to use JSON, and then we're going to go ahead and look over at our project file to see what's going on there. Alright. Sorry about that. I don't know why my throat is dry. Alright, so next thing we have to do is we're going to go here and we're going to start creating our project. So let's give it a name. Name is going to be, this is my first project. Boom. And then we're going to say overview is, didn't think about this. I think with JSON, it should just look like this. Overview, and then we're going to say description. Description is, hey, I am creating this project using a REST endpoint via Postman. And then there's also the image, and then I say image is in here, and that is also a string. So now I can say this is a picture. Actually, how did I do this in the last one for cover image? Oh yeah, I just pushed that in there. Okay, cool. So this is an image, or this is a image. This is an image. Yeah, that sounds more appropriate. So then now we go into sections, and the good thing with sections is we can create multiple ones. So I'll show you the array, right? So what we'll do is section is an array of this section type. So that what that means is we'll have this kind of thing going here. Hopefully I do this right. If not, the terminal should yell at me and tell me what I did wrong. So it is a type that has a title. Let me say headline. Yeah, actually header. Right, you have your header, you get your people's attention, and then you say this is a header. This is the header. And then we want to say, all right, what else is supposed to go in there? Oh, header. We're just gonna put header, and then we'll do this header, and then we're gonna say content title header content is this is the header, and I think that's it. Images are optional, I believe. Type image. I want to, how do I do this? I want to say it's optional. It's a type. I think I can do this. I think I can go type image, and then say require, and just put that. Actually, just by doing that, if I take, it's like if I have an image, it's required, but the image itself doesn't have to be required, if I'm not mistaken. So let's see. Let's just not put anything for the image and just copy this stuff here. And then for the next one, I will do an image, and that's how we can verify if this stuff is working or not. So I'll just create two, and this would just be sub header, and then the content is going to be, this is the subheader, hyphenate, And then for this one, I will use an image, and we'll say images is an array of image, which is this type of object. So we're gonna say title is optional. So I might do 3 just to show you all the different possibilities. So the title's optional. We'll say this is an image. And then the next thing we have to do is we have to give it the image itself, and that's where we say and that's where we say some image, and then that's that. And then we're going to do one more, and then we're going to say another subheader. I'm all about consistency. Another subheader. Content. This is another subheader. So we got that, and that one doesn't have any of the image stuff. So now we have all of the actually, no, I'm missing something. I think it's yep, image, and we're not going to do a title. We're just going to do the image itself. Let's say another image, and we're good to go here. Actually, let me take that comma off. I think we're good to go. I don't think it shows you where stuff begins and ends. Yeah, I think I needed one of these here. Oh. Let me see if I got this right. I think it goes like this. No. So we got that open, closed. We did our title here, so this should be on a separate line. And then this one never had any opening tags. So I think that was my issue here. There we go. So now I close that one. Because the image is an object, so do that. Why does that make it look weird? I see. I was missing this one here. No, everything looks weird. Missing. So images is an array, so this is also supposed to be an array. Yep, there we go. Now nothing's green. I guess green is supposed to mean something. But it's not very intuitive there. So we got the section in there. So now we need to get our sections. So now we need to get our next part in there, which is going to be date started. And then I'd like for all my stuff to look like a certain way. And I think since this is an object, I think it's supposed to look like this. And I could be completely wrong, but we'll see in the JSON. When it looks pretty, we'll see if we have something redundant or not. And I have an X here, which shows me. Oh, this is where it went. Boom. We're still having some problems. Bad string, so I think this is it. Yep. Didn't need those. Or did I? So in here we have a bad string. and we have to find out where it is. And it might be, yep, it's this. And now it's going to jump down to the next line and point this one out. Here, it's the images, and there we go. So I'll leave it here like this to see what happens. And then the date. How do we do the date in the creation of the last one? So I'll use the same format just to be safe. I really don't feel like dealing with dates. So I'll put that in there like that. And now we have the date started. Date completed is not important, so I'm not even going to work with that right now. But the URL is important. And the funny thing is, I shouldn't even have the URL be required. Reason being is, if I do a design project, but the project isn't actually built yet, I don't want to be forced to give a URL for something that doesn't exist. So I'll put it here just so you can see www.someurl.com. I'll put it in there just so we know what it is. And then we're going to add our type. And the type is going to be test. So now let's go ahead and try to create this. And right now what we're getting is a 400 error. And this is partially because, well, probably wholly because we never set our, index.js file to be able to handle that request to that specific location. So it's like, hey, you told me to do something here. I have no idea what you're talking about. What is this? So that's why we have to do this app.use thing for it. And I'm going to pull it in now. So I'm going to say const project router equals require dot slash then we're going to routers, and now we're going here and say project router. Got that, and so here it's probably yelling at me because I'm missing something. I am baffled with this one. It's telling me I need a semicolon. Oh, I see. It's not that at all. It's just invalid syntax. And then now we're going to say project router. And now it's in there. So now when we do this, it should work. Oh, I think I didn't export the project router. Yep. So it's like, hey, you said something and I have no idea what you're talking about. Module dot exports equals router, I believe. Yep. So now when it reruns, so now it's just waiting for some file changes. Actually it should have reran. Schema is not defined, so image, the schema for image is not defined. So that's a really good thing about this. We know before and from the beginning that stuff is gone wrong. So what it's saying is here, it's saying that that schema isn't defined, and I think I just do the same thing. And if I wanted to do a schema, I might have to do, let me try this. Let me try mongoose dot schema. Oh, there it is. mongoose dot schema. And I can also do something cool too. I can also go in and say const schema equals mongoose dot schema. So that way I don't have to do that everywhere. I can just do it once. I can just say schema. I can just refer to it as what it is and be okay. So now we got that working. So now let's try this again. And we're still getting an error, and it seems like we have an extra bracket in here somewhere. So let's look up to the very top, and let's start with overview. So we have name, we have our comma here, then we have overview, and then we have our bracket here, and then we go down into sections. And down in sections, let's count our brackets. So we have an opening, closing, those pair up, and then we have this one which pairs at the bottom, and as you see here, we're missing this one. So that could be what the fuss was all about. And now we go and click on this thing again, we find this pair is there, and that should clear everything up. And we can also click here to see. So I think that might have been our problem. We can try it again, and it seems like our request is actually sending now. Let me make sure I didn't screw anything up in the meantime, because it seems like it's taking a pretty long time. Back to the code base, and I think here, right? So we took this, and when you look at the router here, we can always use something that we had to make sure it works. I think what happened is, did I not return? I did return. So we have our, sorry about that. I don't know what's going on. Somebody's calling me, but I don't know if you guys can hear that or not. So here we go. Let's go back to where we were. We have our code base going. So got our code base going. Sorry about that. So let me see if I can get this thing back going. So here we go. Now we've got the router post, got that going. Trying to dive into this thing and see where we're messing up. So when we do this, this should have gotten us where we need to be. I'm thinking when we were in here, oh, we never sent it back. So that's what happened. We never sent the response. There we go. I knew it had to be something simple. So now we'll do response status, and since we're creating something, we're gonna do 201, and then we're gonna dot send, and now we're gonna send that project back. There we go. So now when we do this, hopefully that allows our code to finish. And let's see if that is the case. Back here, so it just timed out. So let's try it again. All right. So since while we were processing, seems like it picked up on our request and it created the project for us. So now we can go in here and we have this project. And when we go back to the code base, we can see that actually, if we go back to Postman, we can see that if we created another one and we just changed the name, we change the second project, we can post it. Wait. I think what it is when I did the request for, well, when we did this check here, we're saying is we're finding one and we're looking for any of these conditions. So what I think I have to do is find all with this name, and then based off the name, see if the types match. But I really want to see if we have something a little bit more specific to say, hey, we want to find something that matches a specific name and a specific type. So let's see if we can get that. And I'm sorry you guys are seeing my neck. Let me go ahead and fix this. So now we got our Mongoose documentation. So now we're gonna say you have find, and then you have find one. Let's see if we have find one, and we have multiple conditions. So let's see if we can say, okay, so we can actually go in and define the object. The conditions are cast. The conditions is optional, and if conditions are non-defined, I'm just send an empty find one command. Okay, so what we can do is we can go in and say we want to find one with that name and that type. So it's very specific now. So now we're saying we want to know if this name is the same as the name in here, and that the type is that type. So that's what we're looking for. We don't want to reject it if it meets either or. We only want to reject it if it meets both. So we have to be clear on that distinction. Otherwise, as you see, we can have some problems. So now if I re-execute, we get that. So now we go back to Postman, and then we send that off, and now we are successful. So just a small change can have so much impact on your code and what you're trying to do. So when you understand your use cases and what you're trying to do, this is very helpful. But also Postman does us a lot of good because we can go ahead and try different scenarios without having to create our code fully and launch it and then realize that it doesn't work. We can catch things pretty early in the process. So now that we have that, I think we're pretty good. And then we can try to send this off again just to make sure that it does work. So see, now it's still not working the way we want. So now let's go back over here to our database and figure out and see if we can get to the bottom of this. So now we want to say, okay, seems like it didn't find anything with that. So let's say we just do find, right? Doesn't matter how many we have, we don't want to do it. Let's see if this works. Instead of doing find one, we're just going to find anyone that has that. So now if I send that off, there we go. So that's what's going on there. When it went to find one, since there was probably already multiple hits in the database, there were some problems. So what we'll do is we'll just go ahead and drop this collection. Actually, let's just delete the entries the extra ones that we added in. That way we can keep that first one in there. So now we have our two entries. We have the first and we have our second post, and we can open this up too. So this is actually pretty nice that we can go in and get all of this stuff without having to, do the drop downs. We can just expand it and we can see everything we want to see. So now we have these, right? So now let's see if we can, now let's go back into Postman and try this again. Now it's blocking us. So now this works. So I don't know what the difference is between find one and find this. It might be something with the syntax. So we can check this out. So we do find, this is what it does. It filters the filter are cast to their respective schema types before the command is sent. Not sure what that is, but I guess this is it. I didn't even use all this stuff. So yeah, I guess this shows us the object that we're looking for, name John and at least 18. See, this gives us this here. So if we do find one, let's see here, queries, and we go to find one, it's a little different because now we're saying find one phone adventures phone, I'm not sure what that is. And then this does the same thing apparently, just in a different way. Select only the adventurer's name. So I guess they're going if an adventurer with an iPhone with a specific name. So this is a little bit ambiguous to me. So these all just find one user with a very specific condition. So I'm guessing that is what makes it different. But as you can see, if we go back and try to do what we did and use find one, we might run into a problem. So let's do this. Find one, save it, and then try it again. Yep, see, find one isn't cutting it for us. It doesn't do what we needed to do. So find does. And that's just what it is. You know, I can't really get down to the nitty gritty of telling you why that is. And honestly, this hijacks some of the MongoDB code. So since we're kind of looking at a shortcut, we may not understand the underlying code that is being written for us. So that'll be the biggest that's the more concrete explanation for what's going on here. When we look at it, we just see find and find one, but beneath behind the scenes, we don't know what's really being done here in terms of making that request. And for that reason, we can't be too sure on what's happening. And you know, learning query languages is a lot of work, so I rather not. I'm okay with understanding that it doesn't work and just running with that. But depending on how you learn, or just if you're curious or interested, that may be something you want to look into. How Mongoose hooks into the MongoDB code and writes those queries for you. That'll actually be a good learning exercise to see what's going on behind under the hood. So let's go ahead and continue with this. But before I do, let me remove that extra query from the database and then just double check that our stuff works. Okay, cool. There we go. And then if I go in here, still on 2. Cool. So got that. So now we're going to go back into our code, and now we're going to go ahead and get working on extracting a project. So get and actually I forgot to get I'm sorry. For each of these, right now we have everything set up to do just one. So right now we can only get one post. We can only create one post. We can only get one post. We can only update one post, and we can only delete one post. So after all this stuff is done, we'll go in and see how we apply this to multiple posts before we go through doing authorization. So we're going to continue with this, and we'll say /project, and then we'll do /ID. So now we're going to keep going with that, and we're going to say async, and now we're going to do request, we're going to do response, and then now we're going to tell it what's going on. So now we want to get something. So now we're going to say we're going to try to get a project by its ID. So we're going to say project. Oh, well, we need to wait for it because we don't know how long it's going to take for it to look it up. I'm going to say project dot find by ID, and it's going to be our request dot params dot ID, and we know it's the params because it's this thing right here. Actually, I lied. It's yeah, it's this thing right here. So when we go back here, we're gonna say we're gonna find by ID, and oh yeah, that's all I need to put there. So, and then we're gonna say if there's no project here, then we need to tell them there's a 404 not found error. So we need to send this return response.status, and that status is going to be a 404 based off of these HTTP request codes. 404 says not found. So based on that, and then we're going to do response.status dot send, and that's what we're going to send. We can even send a message here. Really, we can say cannot find a project with that ID. Before, I don't think we actually had an error message being sent there, but this is the kind of stuff that we can do. We can, from our server, we can tell it what error message to send, and then just allow our code to do that. So then once you go into your client-side code, you don't have to set that stuff up. It's already there for you. I think I'm missing something in here. I can't see it right away, so I'm just gonna keep going, and it'll show itself in a second. And then outside of this, I want to say I'm gonna do response.send, because now we say, okay, there's definitely a project by this ID, so we'll send it to you. So we'll say just send, and we're gonna go ahead and send that project. And then here we go. That's why it didn't work. We're gonna catch here, and we're gonna say, all right, there's no project with that. I mean, it's like it's not that there's no project with that ID, and it's not that it doesn't know if it exists or not. So at this point, we're going to throw a 500 error because there's something on the server where it's saying, for some reason, I can't give you this thing that you want to get from me. So here we go. We're going to say response dot status, and we're going to say 500, and then we're going to send out that error. And at this point, we don't know what it is, so we're going to send that error like that. And that's that. So now when we go into our Postman and we pull out the ID, actually I need to get the ID from here, so we're gonna get the ID for, actually I'll get the first one because that one's easier to get. We're gonna look this one up. So now we're gonna create our new request, and we're gonna make sure that's in williamennals.com. It is. So now we're gonna say get post, and get project. I'm sorry. So we're getting the project, and now we're gonna save that, and that's how we're going to make our request through Postman to get it. So we have to do localhost, and then we use our port 3000, and then we use that project, that route that we used, and now we're going to throw in the ID that we said that we were using. So this is the ID for the project, and now when we send that off, we get back the specific project that we were looking for in the database. And as you see, this is the, I'm not seeing the name for it, so I think something in here might be a little chopped off. So let me go back in the database and look at it. So the name is here, overview is here, so I'm not seeing why that is. Oh, it just came out of order, that's all. So we're getting this here. So the name is there, everything's there. Is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So all 7 fields that are supposed to be there are there. So that's great. Now what we have to do is look through our code again and say, all right, now that we're able to get something, let's try to get all of these. So for instance, let's say we're in here, right, and we're looking at our projects, and we want to get all of them now. So in order to do this, this is all you have to do. If you look here, the way it's showing us all of them is it's doing this. It's just doing find, and it's not showing, it's not looking for anything in particular. Let's say if we did something like this. If we did find by ID, let me show the same syntax. If we do find by ID like we do everywhere else, and then we took the ID from here and we pass that in. So let's take that ID and pass that in here. We'll see something very interesting happens. Let's see if I just take that out, because now it's not an object, it's just the ID. And I'm not sure if it's supposed to be a string or not, so let's see. We execute query. Let me put it in a string. And see if that is how it accepts it. Okay, so not exactly sure how this thing works, but let me try one last thing. Control R, does that do it? Nope. So line 1. Actually, I'll try this. Do find by ID, and we'll just do find, and we'll do this. ID is that. Still seems like there's some error stuff going on, but that's essentially what's happening. I don't know if you're following what I'm trying to do, but the only thing I'm doing is I'm trying to manipulate this thing here to show me what it is. So when we look at this here, this find, this gives us all the stuff in here. So that's what we're trying to do. We want to say we want everything. Just show me all of the posts, right? So now we're going to do router.get. And this is how you access all of the stuff that exists in that specific document, because that's what MongoDB calls it. It calls it documents. It doesn't call them tables. So project. And now I don't need to do a ID because I'm getting all of them. So, and actually, I could put projects, but I don't want to change it. I want to keep it consistent. So project, and then actually I'll make it consistent, because projects, because it's like, okay, here you're in projects and you're creating a new project in here to go with the rest of the projects, and then here it's like, hey, in projects, now you want this specific project. So if you look at other URLs, it'll be something similar. So I'm going to just change that here as well while I'm thinking about it. And then I'll just have to remind myself to go into Postman and update these as well. So now that we have this projects, we don't have to do anything else with that. We already know that that's what we're getting. So and you might be thinking that with all of these requests that we make, you're like, oh, they all have the same slash here. So how does it know the difference between posting and getting? And it's literally just because of the type of request that we're sending in. The router is going to know that it is a post request to this location, and same thing, it knows that this is a get request to a specific location. So it filters between each of these queries based off of the type of request and the endpoint, and this here is the endpoint. So we have our async missing an N, and now we do the same thing. We do request, response, and we just continue on like this, and we send that out. And now we say this time we're going to do try, and then we have to say const. And now what's going to happen is we're going to say const projects, because now we're getting more than one, and we're going to say projects equals await, because we don't know how long it's going to take for our code to look up the database. So now we're going to say we're going to do project dot find, and in this case we don't care, we know how many are in there, so we want to, well, we don't know how many is in there. I mean, you might know, but we're not looking for a specific number. We're not looking for anything in particular. We want to say, hey, if it's a project, I want to see it. So that's what we do here. And then we say, if there's no projects, we need to say, hey, all right, you don't have any projects here, so there's nothing to show you. So we're just going to return a 404 to say there's there's nothing there to get. Sorry. And then we're going to send that error. Now I'm kind of thinking, in the event if, like, hey, if I was looking into my database to get something and it didn't show, what would I do? But now that I'm thinking about it, I would say, hey, okay, I would go into my, I would get that 404, and then I can do some handling with my front end code to show something else, because there's no data there. So that's perfectly fine for right now. So then now, when that's the case, we need to send out that data, and we need to just give it back to the user. So we're going to say, now we're going to send out those projects. And now this is going to be an array of projects. So it's going to be more than one. So we send that off, and then now we have to do our error handling. And now it's like, okay, if there's any other, if we can't send it to you, and we can't give you a 404 to say something doesn't exist, there's something going on with the server, and we'll send whatever error the server gives at the time. So just kind of like some of the stuff you see in the command terminal might be some of the stuff we'll see there. And that does that. So now let's go here, and we'll do the same thing how we have here in Postman for a get. We'll create the new get, and then we'll create a request, and we're going to say get all projects, and we're going to save that. And then now we go to our endpoint, which is localhost 3000, and then we say projects. And now that we're in here and we have that, we can just go ahead and fire that off, and look at that, we get 2 projects. So now we're able to have more. And if we were to create another project in here, actually, let me save this really quick. We're gonna say create project. So now we have that in there as well. So now we can create another project. This is my first, watch this, I'm going to try something else out now. We're going to try, hey, this is my first project, and then we're going to change the type to be test2. So now when I send this, I shouldn't get an error, but I did. So now we have to think what happened, because the only thing I changed was the type. I have the name and we have the type. So let's go back over to our code and see why that happened. So what it has here is, if the type and the name are the same. And we didn't even get this. We got something else. We got this 400. So that means something else happened. So let's see what happens if we run this one more time. All right, something's going on. Oh, I see. Projects. There we go. We're missing the S. And there we now we have it. So it's saying a project with this name already exists, even though we changed the type. So let me go in my database and just verify that it didn't already create. Let me just close that out and then just open it again. So I'm not seeing a project with this same type. So I wonder. Another test. Because a string is a string. So. Okay, so we're running into a conflict even though the type isn't the same. So let me play around with this for a second to just make sure that I'm not sure what can be causing that, because we have our object defined. Let's say let me see what happens if I do this. If I do this might do something. I doubt it. I just want to see what'll happen if I put this in there. And then save that for my post routers as well. If I do this, it still hits the same way, and we're still not seeing it show up in our database. So now I'm stumped. So now I'm curious to see what happens if we do find one and we keep that same syntax. Let's see if we are lucky. So I feel like find one will let us send it, but will it let us create another one? It sure does. So let's go ahead and dig into this, because I think this is going to be a problem if we can't get it under control, especially as we start to expand on do some other things. So let's see if we do find one and try to fire that off. And in this case, we're not going to tell it anything. We're just going to tell it to find one, and we're going to execute that. And you see here we just get this one thing. You get the first one that's in there probably. Yep, first project. So now if we do find one and we put name, actually is it title or name? Yeah, name is this is my second project, and we put that in there, and we I don't mean to save this, and we re-execute. Now let's see if we get something different. Yep, and we do. So we want to see which one has the name is the second project, and the type is, I'm going to do something here to play around. We're going to say test2, and I want to see if it's going to be smart enough to know that I don't want that. So now it's saying there's nothing here. So when I go back here, what I'm thinking is somewhere in here, it doesn't have, when it gets the name and the type from the parameters, somehow, actually let's do this. Let's do body, because if we look at the body should hold some information. But I don't think that the body is actually holding all of the, let's see here, Postman. So this is the body. The body is this stuff down in here. So I'm wondering if I try to look for specific properties on the body, because I think if I go params, I'm not sure where exactly that's going in. So the params is up in here, and I'm not sending anything in those places. So that might be what's getting me. So if I do body dot name, and I could be wrong here, so just trial and error, and we do body. We might run into a problem there because the body is a JSON object, and we're just trying to do a dot on that to get that, and there it may be a little bit more work we have to do to get that. So let's see. We go in here and we do that. So far, so good. Let's try this. Getting the conflict still, so it's not broke, but it's not great. So now let me get out of this and just put it back to where it was. I'm gonna redo the query. Oh wait, so maybe it did work. Let me make sure I didn't undo anything here. Yeah, so I didn't even notice when that got in there. So the only way we can verify if that worked or not is to go back and try to not here. Well, actually, yes, here. Let's go back to the body that we had here, and let's say this is my second project, and then we'll change the type. We have the type there just to see if that worked. Yep, there we go. And then we've tried again, and we get the conflict. Perfect. So we just solved our problem. So we were looking to get the information from the wrong place. So that's good to know. So here, this shouldn't be params. And I think the only reason why I got away with this is because I'm only sending in that one piece of information. So let me go ahead and put that in there, and then check the posts as well while we're at it. And then I'll just put test 3, and then I'll go ahead and send that off. And then I need to put an S at the end of all of these. And some of these may not work because the IDs are outdated. But let's try this. Set posts, and we're getting an error. So here, oh, I see. So we didn't create an object when we put this thing in here. We just put that. So to create this object, we need to put this in here. And then we're going to say find one where the title equals that. So now we're fine there. So now that'll give us the same flexibility that we have with the other one. We can create a post with the same title, but it might be in a different category, right? Category. And remember, the category might be request.body.category. So now when we go back and we go ahead to create this, we're good. We try to do it again, it exists already. But we say category is testing alt, whatever, right? We do that, we're able to create it, and then we can't do it again. So now we figured out how to get our flexibility in our requests. So now we have to move on to back to our projects. So now we're able to get all our projects based off the code that we wrote back in our projects. So we created a point so that way we can get all of the projects. So now next thing we're going to do is we're going to go and we're going to keep continuing on, and we're going to patch. So now we're going to update a specific project. So again, maybe you wrote the name wrong, maybe some bad copy on there, who knows, right? So now we're going to go ahead and continue with that. So we're going to do projects, Then we're going to do async, and then we're going to do request, and we have our response, and then we're going out this way. So now we're going to try to so now we have to see, hey, our project is going to be whatever project comes back from this. So we're going to do await project dot find by ID. Almost forgot the ID there. Find by ID, and this is going to be requests dot params dot ID. And the difference is the params is this thing here. The body is the stuff that you're sending. So that can be nested together in your, how do you say it? So just like your payload. So it's like your request payload. But this here is like, hey, in my parameters, I told you that this is the ID that's coming with it, as we have here in our URL. So we have that, and we're going to say if there's not a project, then we know that that project doesn't exist. So we're going to return a 404 response to the user to say that there's nothing there. And I don't know why the 404s have been putting an E in there, because 404s is just that there's not going to be much coming back with that. But just to kind of humor myself, I'm going to check this out here, that error message. So where is it? Get project by a specific ID. I'm just going to throw a letter on at the end and put a 1 there, and you'll see the 404 not found. And that message didn't come back anyway. So that's cool. And then we do this again. Same reason. Boom. Cast failed, and we don't even get our message that we were looking for. So maybe it knew I had too many characters. Yep, it knew I had too many characters in there for the ID. So that's that. And then here, I think there was a B there. And when you do this, we get our project back. Okay, so continuing on to our patch. So that's that. We can put it there, but it's not important for me right now to do that. Maybe if I want to message on the user side, I might put it in there, but I can always handle stuff on the client side. And we're gonna say, hey, we're gonna send out to the user that, oh, mistake. Before that, we need to send our post. Actually, there's 2 things we need to do. So if there's a project, we want to update that, and we need to not only find by ID, but we need to update it. How could I forget that? And the update criteria is going to be here in the request dot body. So whatever is in the body is what we're updating, and then we need to add in that new, because we want to get the object after it's been updated, not before. We don't want to get the original stuff back, because then we can't see our change. So we're going to run validators again to make sure all our code is meeting the requirements for an entry into the database. And I believe we also have to add in that use, what is it? There is here in the, use, find, and modify. Use, find, and modify. And we want to set that to false. So now we have right here in our body what's being updated, and then what we'll do here is we'll send that back to the user. Response.send project. And then when you look here, that's the same thing we did here. Sent it back. We have all that stuff in there. We have our update criteria, and we have our options, and then we send our post back, and then now we just need to catch this post. Catch the error, and we're sending back a 400 because if it doesn't allow it to enter the database, then it's more likely a problem with something that the user is doing rather than the database. So that's why we're doing that, and we send that off, and we are good to go. And now we're going to go over and we're going to go and create a new request, and now we're going to say update project, update a project. Boom, send that. And then since we have get all projects here, I'm just going to pull one of these IDs off here, and we'll update the first one. So now we still do the same thing, local host 3000, and we drop off this projects, and then we have to give it the ID that we want to for the project that we want to update. And then down in the body, we have to tell it JSON. We have to tell it what we want to change. So here we'll just change the description. We'll change the description to say, instead of creating, we'll say we're updating a project. So that way the message is a little different. So description, I think it was overview description. So in this, I'm just gonna guess, and I'm gonna follow the same output. So I'm gonna say overview, and because we're saying we're changing in overview, we're gonna change the description, right? And that description is gonna say this: I'm updating this project using a REST endpoint via Postman. And the good thing is about that is, hey, I have a legit mistake in here. I'm creating this project using endpoint, I don't have the D in there. So this is a legit change. So now we're gonna fire this thing off, and boom. Wait a second. Oh, I see. We did a GET request. We need to change this to a patch. And when we save that, yep, there we go. I'm updating this project using a REST endpoint via Postman. So there we go. And then we would look in our database. The second project, another test. First project, another test. And you see here, our database hasn't changed. When you look at project and we drop down overview, we look at description, it now says I'm updating this project using a REST endpoint via Postman. So there we go. We have everything that we needed for that, and we have it all saved. So now what we want to do is, I can't see a batch update process where you're updating multiple posts at once. That just sounds like it's prone to more errors anyway. But considering that you're probably only doing one post at a time or one project at a time, I'd say that we're okay with that. So we have that now, and we have our update. So now what we need to do is we need to give us the capability to delete stuff. So in order to do that, we go ahead again and we go back into our /projects, endpoint, and now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to just do async, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to use our request, and we're going to use our response stuff, and then we're going to go through this. So now we have the try again, because now what we're looking for is we want to delete by a specific ID. So we're going to try to find, first you have to find it. So we're going to try to find the project that we're looking for, and we're going to say const project equals, so now we're going to wait for this lookup for project dot find by ID, and that's going to be request dot params dot ID, and then we have to throw in the options of use, find, and modify, and we set that to false per the command line stuff that we saw before. So you see here in the patch and down in the delete, we have to use that. So now we have that, find by ID and delete and remove. Well, delete, we're using delete. So we have that, we have this, and now we have to say if there's no project, right? Same as here. If there's no project, you're going to send a error. So if there's no project, we're going to send back, well, first we need to return, and we're going to send back that 404 to say, hey, that doesn't exist. And then we're going to send that out. Boom. And then below that, we're going to say if it exists, we're going to return that back to the user. So we're going to send that post out. Should be project, right? And then otherwise, if there's any kind of mistake, error going on, it's something wrong with the server because it can't fetch it and it can't make the query for you. So this is a 500 error. So we do response.status, and this is going to be a 500, and we are on to the races. So as you can see here, 400 messages are usually when you're trying to put stuff in to a database and there's a problem, and the 500 is when you're trying to get stuff out of the database and there's a problem. So that's mostly it. But I guess there could be a situation where if it's like how we look here in the HTTP codes, where you run out of storage, then it'll let you know, hey, you can't get in there because we don't have enough storage. And with that, this is I guess more of a special case in terms of what the generic statement I came up with. So it's just kind of, it just says explicitly a server error. So that's the server error. So you're getting that. So now we can go in and delete a post. So let's go ahead and delete a post. So now we're going to new, and we're going to make a new request, and this is going to be delete. I keep saying post, I mean to say project. So delete project, right? So with that, delete project, it's right collection, and we change this to a delete request, and then we do local host 3000, and now we're going to say let me pull out one of these what is this? I don't know what, oh, I must have had an extra one there. Now we have this ID that I need to grab. There we go. And actually, I don't want to delete this one. I want to get all the projects again, and then I want to pick and choose. I want to delete some of the older ones. Actually, let me delete the first one. Nope. I'm being very indecisive right now. Let's do this one. So now we're gonna delete this project. So we're gonna do projects slash, and then we're gonna put that in there. So now when we send this off, we get back the project that we were trying to delete. And as of right now, we have 4 entries in here. And then when we refresh, we now have 3. So now that worked. So now, what about deleting more than one, right? Maybe you have, let's say in a situation where you have a kind of management portal and you want to delete a series of IDs. Um, that's a good question. If you want to delete multiple ones, in my thought process would be to say, you want to store that in an object somehow and then send that back, which would be just a list of IDs. Um, in this case, it can be done in 2 ways. It can be patched off here. You can have a slash, and have each one of those slashes have an ID. Um, that sounds plausible, but as I get here, I'm kind of thinking chaining that would be tough. So what I'm thinking is that a batch operation like that would probably need to be done in the body. So let's do a little research on that. Let's say let's go over here and say mongoose delete multiple items. Delete many by ID. So they do have a delete many by ID option, and this would be it. So actually, let's go over to Mongoose and see how they have that. So let's go to queries, and they have a delete many option here. So let's click on that, and then we'll say they show us how to do it. So what we have to do is we enter in the conditions, and it deletes all of the documents that match conditions from the collection. And it behaves like remove, but deletes all documents that match conditions regardless of the single option. So in this case, we can say if the ID is within a specific range, we could do that. But what if it's like you want to delete every other one, right? So you would just have to indicate explicitly what we want to delete. So what I'm thinking is it would just be an array of IDs. So we would say, I'm trying to think about this logically, right? The object is conditions. So can we do the conditions as a array, right? So I'm already thinking here. Let's try this. Where are we? So let's go ahead and we're gonna do router dot delete, and then we're gonna say slash projects slash because this is the process. If I do it by a individual ID, I'll run into the problem of I have to do each ID by itself continuously, right? One by one. But if I want to say select multiple items, have an array of IDs, I should be able to say, let's see if I do this. And then also I'm thinking 2 ways really. So let me just go back to what I have here. Projects, right? what is the difference between having this, well, having something like this. I'm not going to fill it out just yet because I'm going to show you what I'm trying to say. Resync, and then we're going to say request, a response, and we're going to have that, and we're going to have our code in there. It's a little funky there. Versus we're trying to delete all of them now. So we're going to say router dot delete. Should that just be delete all, right? You know what I mean? So maybe just projects slash all, if that makes sense. So that's what I'm gonna do now. I may modify this a little later after I do some more reading on it, but I just want to test this out while I'm thinking about it. So we're gonna wait, and we're gonna say project dot, and what was the option? Delete any. So project dot delete many, and the condition is going to be ID, and really I want it to be a little bit more specific, because this here, I want to see what this GTE thing means because I've never seen this before. So I think this is greater than or equal to, right? So I want to look up this thing because this might be what the operator I need to get me a more flexible um, a more flexible search. So I think this dot where might help. Where equals, and then I'm thinking, let's say I have multiple ones. So I'm gonna think there's like a maybe like a looping operation here, maybe like a for each or something. So there's a where. There's also, I thought I saw where here. Let's look at this one. String or functions. Return this. So return this dot comments dot length equals 10, or yeah. So I might be able to use a lookup here to kind of loop through it for myself. And actually, I think there is a callback that I might be able to use. So let's do this. So you see here is like where age is greater than equal to 21, less than or equal to this. And that's fine. But let's see what else we have. So within, then timeout. Yeah, I think we have quite a bit of options here, but I'm gonna try to keep it as simple as possible. So I'm gonna stick with this thing that we're seeing here, and I'll try to parse this out simply. It seems like I can have a callback function. So I'm gonna start with that. So I'm gonna say ID. Since it's not a single thing, that's the part that's got me kind of confused there. And I wonder if any of these are required. It doesn't seem, well, it seems like these are required. So I'll go with this option with the function. So I'll try a function first. So here we go. Dive into this, and we say delete many, and then the ID is anything in this array. And I know this is going to be weird, but I'm going to do it anyway. Request dot body dot ID. And this ID is actually going to be an array. I don't think I'm going to get anything from this, but I think it'll be a good exercise to just get my brain working on how to actually tackle this. So we'll say if no projects, then we're going to return that 404 response.status dot send status 404, and then we're going to send that back to the user. Say, hey, you got 404, something isn't there. And then if it does exist, we're going to send back the projects, and then we're going to catch our error, and then we're going to send that out and say, hey, you were trying to delete something, we couldn't, there's something going on with the server, so try that again. So now when I go here and I just do delete projects, I think we'll get something interesting, because this delete all doesn't sit right with me. And what I can really do is I'm gonna cheat a bit, and I want to go to somewhere that I've been before. I guess this will be a bit of promo for my YouTube channel. But I want to go to my channel and I want to say, hey, let's go into videos and actually go into the YouTube studio, and hopefully I don't screw this up, but I'll do videos, and then I want to start clicking on stuff. So right there, that selects all of them, and initially it doesn't change anything. But let's say I click on this one. I don't care if this one gets deleted. Click on that one, and then I say I want to delete it. Or actually, let me just see if I can. More actions. Let's say delete forever. There's a check that should come up, but I'm not seeing it. So I'll just. I'm a little afraid to actually delete it, so I'll stop there. But actually, in this thing, I actually get to see a few things. I get to see where I'm at. I get to see specifically videos that I have in here, and I can tell already that whatever's happening beyond this in terms of my selections, they're being captured somewhere else. So that being said, is I know for a fact that this ID stuff I'm looking for could be captured somewhere else. So that tells me already that it should be in the body. So now what I have to do is, and another thing I can do really is to kind of not beat myself in the head, is to say, hey, if I do this thing, and actually no, let's not do that. Because I do want to do this delete this way. I don't want to just delete everything. That doesn't really make sense in terms of this use case. If I want to delete everything, then I'll have to delete everything manually. So let's say we have this thing, delete many. We have this ID in there, and we want to say the ID equals the request.body.id, or there's a function that we can put in here because it's just a parameter. So what if we say, instead of this, and we do for, let's say request.body for dot id. Let's just do this. I'm gonna go back to what we had and just run it and see what error we get. That's the safest way to do this. So let's save this, and then we're gonna go to Postman, and I'm going to create a new request, and I'm going to put delete many posts projects. I don't know why I keep saying post. And I save that, and then I go into here and I do local host 3000 slash projects, and I change this to delete, and then I go into the body and I tell it specifically which post I want to delete, and I want to say underscore ID. Well, actually, I want to say ID. Well, actually, underscore ID, I guess. And we're going here, and now I'm making this. I'm turning this into an array. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take out all of the projects that we have. So I'm going to go in here, and actually I'm just going to pick the two, just so we know the that's just so we know it didn't delete all of them. ID is an array, and I believe even though it's still an array, the digits might be safe by themselves. Only one way to find out. And then I want to get another one. Let's grab this one. And we're going to do this, and we're going to put this in the body as well. And now we have this. So now I'm just going to try to send it and see what error I get. So there's actually an unexpected token position 13, a B. So let me turn these into this, to strings, to see if that fixes anything. Because, yeah, I think even the IDs are strings even in the database. So if I try this again, we get a 200. It says it deleted 3 things, and let's just refresh. Seems like it deleted everything, which isn't what we wanted. So now we have to go back and start from the beginning and say, okay, that's not what we want to do. So first let me look back at the docs, and the conditions are an object. So let's see, I'm going to do a mongoose delete many by ID. Oh wait, here we go. An article that I probably already looked. So we have this, and the following route handler we may vote when the endpoint delete is executed. So we're just going to send in a function, it seems like. So now so they have this in operator that we can use to say the array. So I should be able to grab that and send that. And it seems like they have a callback function, but I don't need that. I think this might be a little outdated. So let's go ahead and try this out. So I'll actually just, so the object should be something like this now. So it should be ID the way we had it, and it should be like this now. $in, I believe. Is that how that looked? Yeah. The array is actually here. And then I close this out. So now this is a lot better, a lot more convenient, because now all of the stuff that we want to send here is right here. And that's it. So what they did was they just had their, this is what their database is called, and this is the delete many, and this is what they're doing. So when they, so now they're changing the way they have their object in here. So now what I can do is I can say delete many, and I can still use this ID property, and what'll happen is I'll just send this through so this array is actually what's going to go into the output Actually, I'm still kind of confused on this. So what they're doing is they're executing this stuff. Yeah, so it seems like it matched everything when I did the last time, because now I'm seeing this stuff here. And last time we see the message here. We got in, meaning the number of items deleted, right? In is the number of match documents. There we go, 1. And then we say, okay, boom, 1, meaning it was successful, and then deleted all 3 items. So the next time, let's go ahead and create our projects again. So first project, send that, and fix my typo. So we're going to create the first, we're going to create the second, and we're going to create a third. So now that we have that, we need to modify our get all projects, and we're going to pull out 2 IDs again. And then looking at this, when they put the IDs in, they are strings. So now we pull that out, and now it should be ID $in, and that's also shown in the API here. I think it's further down. Actually, let's just Google it. Let's do in. I believe I saw this somewhere else. Let's go back to queries. $in. So it seems like there's a discrepancy here, because here they're talking about currently. Let's use the in operator. See if this is let's see if this has been replaced actually. Oh, so this is a MongoDB thing. I need it to be Mongoose. So it seems like Mongoose might still be able to tap into that, and I mean we'll only be able to see it by testing it. So let's just try this, and then I think I need to modify this thing to say underscore ID is request.body.id to be that object there. If not, what'll happen is I'll have a big problem. So I'll just let it be request.body, and that might solve the problem. So if I try this again, let's see. So yeah, we still have the problem now. So this definitely isn't a thing, but I know the where is a thing. So we just have to look through the documents to see what's going on, and to see where we can get some stuff to help us match our query. So now we need to, oh, they do have an in thing here. In path string specifies an in. So I think we just do .in. So what'll happen is we'll say actually, how does this match to what we're trying to do? String val specifies an in operation query condition where call with one argument the most recent path passed to where is used. I am confused with this, and that is okay. So here, they're looking for that specific age. So we did within. So they have stuff for geometric lookups. I know there's got to be a way to look up things by ID. I mean, there is another way we can do this. There could be an array that we give in the body, and we can say, okay, in this thing, we can kind of, it's a little bit more tedious to do it that way, so I kind of don't want to do that. So I'm trying to see if there is something in the database documentation that'll let us sort through a bunch of IDs and match it. And I'm almost certain there should be something that does that. Actually, I don't think I've saved since I made that change, so maybe that was a problem. And for my fresh here, okay, so we have some stuff there. And if I try to do this now, and what if I just did this? This in, oh, this isn't JSON anymore. That is the problem. So take that out, right? So now we have this. So right now we're sending IDs. So now what I need to do is we say, and actually I'm just gonna do IDs like that because there's more than one. Actually, no, I'll do the ID. We're gonna jump here and we just say delete many, and then we need to do ID. Let's see how we can manipulate this. So there's a where that we can add onto this, and let's see. I wish they had a little bit more examples in here. So let's do here, and we say where. Okay. And then we might be able to say for each. What's this? Oh, here we go. Only use where when you have a condition that cannot be met using other modules like less than. Be sure to read about all its caveats before using. So this is just a part of the process when you're a developer. Sometimes you hit stuff that you don't really understand, and you have to read in order to figure it out. And that's what's happening here, and you get to see what that's like for me. And you know, that's just what it is when you're a developer. That's what you sign up for. So let's see if I can keep this thing going. So use where operator to pass either a string containing a JavaScript expression or a full JavaScript function to the query system. The way it provides greater flexibility requires that the database process the JavaScript expression or function for each document in the collection. Reference the document. Okay, so here is a really good place for us. So now they're showing us how to use this thing. So you're saying find where. So now instead of doing, so now we can delete anything we want. We have to delete many. We can do the where, right? We can use that, and then we can create a function for us to do that. So that's what I'm going to do. So we're going to say delete many, and then we're going to say where, and then just want to follow the syntax properly. And now we're going to create a function. Where function, and then we're going to take the request body. Actually, we're going to say where function. We're not going to put anything in there. Actually, we'll put the request dot. Yeah, we don't need anything to go into there. Say where request dot. Oh, where. Let's see if this works. Where created a function with nothing, and then we're going to return actually no, our function is going to be a little bit more complex. So we're going to create this array of stuff, so we have to do this manually. So we'll have to say where, and I don't want to do this, I want to use the ES6 syntax. So I'm going to say we're going to create an arrow function, and we're going to say where for each, actually I need to say, yeah, okay, so I'm going to say requests dot body dot underscore ID, right? So for each ID dot for each, we're going to say underscore ID, and then we're going to do const. So this right here is already telling us that we already know that we want an ID, array of stuff, and we need to return this later. So before we get into here, we need to say const matches equals an empty array. Yeah. Something got a little fishy in here. There we go. We're getting there. Oh no! All right, let me just control Z it all, and I know where. Oh, control Shift Z. Sorry. And I should just be able to take out. Wait, this is all the way screwed up now. Where? So this is where I create my function. There we go. Now I'm back on track. All right, there we go. So where request dot body dot underscore ID. I think that's how I have it here. And I'll just make it easier. I'll do dot ID. Might be weird. Dot ID, and then we'll say dot for each, because we know that that's going to give us an array. For each ID, we want to add that to the return, the matches, const matches equals an empty array, and we say, hey, for each matches, for each ID, if the ID equals the match, if the ID, wait, I see. Where because this is the weird part. I know I have a list of IDs, and I want to get each and every one of those IDs in that list, but I want to return each ID that matches the one here, and I'm just not sure how to pass that in there to match with an individual ID, because I can't compare anything. Only thing I have here is the ID. So I'm just thinking about this where thing. For instance, when we looked at the Mongoose database stuff over here, so here we said where the length is equal to 10. Or here, so I might be able to put some kind of JavaScript function in here. Find queries. So here it's another thing. Oh, wait a second. I think we got it. Specifies an all query condition where called with one argument the most recent path where it's used. So you're gonna get all pets that are dog, cat, or ferret. So let's try this. Let's do where, or should it do all? Let's do all. And then so we'll do find dot all. Actually, let's just use where. It seems like we're already in here. Because when you look at it here, alright, there we go. And it seems like you chain it on. So we'll say delete many, and then we'll do dot all, and then we'll say we want delete all the ones that have the ID that were in the list. So we'll just say all dot, and it would be underscore ID, and then let me see the structure they have for that. And then it'll pass in that array. So we'll say dot all, and then comma our array. So that should be request.body.id to get that out. So we'll say all, and then comma, it should be request.body.id. Let's try this. I'm not seeing any errors, so at least the syntax is proper. So then when I do this, what do I get? No matches, but it deleted something. Okay, we're making progress. We're not breaking now, and we didn't delete everything. So here we have to dig into this a little bit more. Let's say, what if I did, how does it look in the database? Is underscore ID, and when I create this query, it is ID. So let me try this one more time. So it's successful, but it's just not getting it. So we just did dot where. Well, it seems like the where is equivalent with it, but I'm missing something. I don't want to open that. And I like that the fact that this value is an array. So, and we have an array of strings. So I don't think that's it. What if I just tried array.body? I mean request.body, and didn't jump right into that. So then let's try this again and see what happens. Cast the object ID. This is interesting. Seems like we could use this instead. So cast the object ID failed for this value. So what I'm thinking is that maybe I can just put this and try it again. Well, no, it's saying cast the ID failed. So now we're getting something. And I'm going to take that error message and I'm going to look it up. And new object ID request params.id. blah, 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 blah. So it seems like I'm trying to tap into this ID object and I made a mistake. So I think what I should do is somehow get this ID object in there and then tie the all to it. Or maybe it should be object ID here. And then I just do this. And then I change it here. So let's try this. No errors, and send that off. And again, same thing. But this time we're not getting any errors. So I think that's one step. But this isn't working. Request.body.id. Let's try this again. So what if we did find by ID and delete? Because find by ID and delete doesn't necessarily say it can only do one thing. Yeah, if you do find by ID and delete, it's only going to give you one. So let me just keep looking. So they have his here in Postman. And it seems like they have it going where find breed in. See, I keep seeing this in here, but I'm not seeing it over here in Mongoose. So let me go back to the API and keep looking. So all seems like a very good option, but we're missing something. And then we even have here, we have a query. Let's see. Let's go back to the list here. Because we're trying to delete many, and by deleting many, they don't really give us a lot of options. Let's see, Mongoose delete many by ID, and let's look a little further. And go, hey, delete many user ID, There we go. So delete many user ID. So I would do this here. It would say ID is this array here. So I'll use an object and see what happens. All right, let's try that. Stack Exchange is probably one of the best resources out there for developers trying to do this kind of, when you're stuck and you need a resource to help you out. I've never gone wrong with Stack Exchange. I've found almost the solution to every problem I've had with Stack Exchange. So I'm just going to check this out and see what happens. Oh, look at that. It worked. And when we go to get all projects, we should now be missing, well, we should only have one in there. And we do. Look at that. It took me a while to get to this point, but we are now here. So, I'm just gonna try to catch myself up on the other end, and then I'll call it. Actually, I'm just gonna stop here. I feel really good getting to the bottom of this problem, and I've been streaming long enough. It's almost 3 hours. So I'm gonna wrap this up here, and I appreciate you guys for tuning in and joining this process with me. There's a whole lot more to do, so stay tuned, and I'll see you guys tomorrow at 8 o'clock. I'll be early. I'll be on time. So just come ready and watch any of the videos before this if you've missed anything to catch up. And shoot me any questions. You can contact me on IG at Almighty Will TV, or you can shoot me a message here on YouTube. So thanks for that. See you guys.